Hey guys, my name is AK Rex, and today I brought a special guest for you. Now, he is not our regular type of special guest, he is a very, very special guest because, unfortunately, he has not been given enough time and, in my opinion, very underrated. But the reason why he is here is because a lot of the reference material that I have used for my latest largest theropod video was actually taken from his work. And I have found that his work is very accurate, at least to my knowledge and understanding, but he is going to help us better understand his methods in this interview. So today we have FRANOYS, or alternatively, I believe people refer to you as Daniel. Welcome.
Oh, hi. Well, Daniel is the name that I use for this Skype account, but my real name is Francisco. That's why the DeviantArt name is somewhat similar, but it's okay. So you can call me Fran if you want. It's easy.
All right, how are you doing then? Are you in the mood to answer some questions? Because I believe that my subscribers will want to hear all the answers. Are you up for it?
Yes, I am. I'm up for it.
Okay, so let's start by, obviously you have already let us know your name, but just give us a brief idea and tell us how did you become interested in dinosaurs and paleontology?
Okay. Well, I became interested in paleontology at a very young age. I don't even know. I think it might have been like 3 years old or 4. That's very young. But I didn't investigate much on dinosaurs for most of adolescence for a really long time. I tried to be the standard teenager, going out with friends, trying to flirt, trying to study to get to the university to study engineering. I started. Then I realized I should go back to dinosaurs and paleontology like 3 years ago. I felt like I was trying too hard to be another person because of what adults keep telling me, that dinosaurs were childish and useless and that I wouldn't make a lot of money. And in the end, I say, well, I don't give a shit about that. So I'm going to do what I love. And 3 years ago, I started biology, and that's what I'm doing.
All right, well, that's nice to hear. So, if I understand correctly, you're from Spain, right?
Yeah.
So, in Spanish, perhaps you would understand if I said that you have some big cojones to be able to make that decision.
Yeah. Maybe some people can interpret it like that. When I did it, I was really afraid I was making the wrong choice. But now that I think of it in retrospective, I think it is the best choice I've ever made. Like, follow your dreams, pursue what you want. Don't just try to do things to please others, much less your parents.
Yes, I know what you mean. What you mean exactly. I have found myself in a similar kind of position at one point in my life too, and I know many other people have the same thing, and I'm pretty sure everybody here who is watching can relate quite a lot as well, because we always end up doing something that we think is more important, but we don't realize that the most important is what's coming from the inside. It's not what's coming from the outside. So, I wanted to ask you, could you give us your 5 favorite dinosaurs from top of your head?
Okay. Well, for me, it is really hard to pick just only 5 because it might feel cliche, but I love every dinosaur that I know about. Without exception, I can't dislike any of them. But my all-time 5 favorites would come from an illustrated book I used to have as a child. It was really old, from like the 80s or something. But I remember I would read it again and again as a 4-year-old. And I think the 5 I liked most were Diplodocus, Tyrannosaurus, Allosaurus, Mutaburosaurus, and Ewopleucephalus, which I don't know if it's correctly pronounced in English. People was really shocked I could pronounce it in Spanish when I was a child. And that's it, I think. I would name a lot more had the chance, but...
Yeah, I think it's very hard to really choose. If I were asked the same question, I mean, when I made my video about my favorite 10 dinosaurs back a few days, well, no, actually it's been a month, I believe, or more when I made that video, I struggled to choose because I just really wasn't sure, because we believe and we know for a fact, actually, that all dinosaurs are awesome. So, okay, so shall we get into the main subject now with this slight introduction? So, basically, how would you generally approach the subject of reconstructing a skeleton, especially when you have an incomplete material available? How do you basically do that? Because I've seen you've done some pieces, like, for example, Zhucheng Tyrannus, Magnus, and there were a couple other pieces in your page that I've seen as well, and I wanted to see how you basically restore that. So please give us an understanding, how do you basically do that?
Okay, well, in general, when you want to reconstruct an skeleton, you need one thing that is very important, which is a comprehensive description of the animal, with lots of images, lots of text, lots of measurements. Then you need to put all the bones to the same scale, according to either the scale bars or the measurements. In my opinion, the measurements are always more true to reality, because the scale bars are usually based on photographs with some ruler next to the bones, and that can easily get distorted with perspective or things like that. So in my opinion, always prioritize the measurements. Then once you have all the remains of the specific taxon you want to restore, you need to fill in the gaps with the more closely related animals, and for that you have to read all the phylogenetic analysis and make sure they are up to date, because they can change quite a lot with time. In the case of Zhucheng Tyrannus, it was easy because it always or almost always ends very closely related to Tarbosaurus and Tyrannosaurus rex. So once I ran out of Zhucheng Tyrannus remains, which I cross-scaled from Tarbosaurus for the rest of the skeleton, I went with Tarbosaurus parts and then Tyrannosaurus parts. And with that, it is basically complete. You can follow that with basically everything. The more complete the taxon, the less conjectural your skeleton will be. That is very clear, of course.
So to be very clear here as well to the viewers, that it's important to understand as well that although this is the most reliable method when you have a very, let's just say you have a very strong lack of material, it's still important to realize that there can be errors made in the process, and if more evidence becomes available, it could either prove that it was correct, or it might prove that it was incorrect, depending on what we find in the fossil once it becomes hopefully available.
Yeah, yes, of course. Things are always prone to change, especially when our knowledge is limited in the taxon in question. It is usually very rare for animals to deviate tremendously from closely related taxa, but it can happen. One example that happened very recently was with Spinosaurus, for example, which used to be reconstructed using baryonychine remains like Baryonyx and Suchomimus, and then we discovered it deviated greatly from those proportions. Both Spinosaurus and the related taxa like Sigilmasosaurus and stuff. So it can be dangerous, certainly. Another example would be Dinosaurus, which used to be reconstructed like a typical ornithomimid, but then we found out it had a huge hump, it was really bulky, it had graviportal proportions in the limbs. Things can vary very easily.
So I'm glad you actually brought up Dinosaurus because this is actually one of the dinosaurs that I believe you have not yet produced the full, drawing of and the mass estimate, but you have already given me some information, which thank you very much as well for my video on the theropods. So just as well as you did for the Therizinosaurus. So we just wanted to ask you, is it not surprising at all to find out that, at least according to your methods and analysis, that the mass of Therizinosaurus turns out to be not quite as heavy as many people may have thought, because everybody always called it, the fatty, so to speak, quote unquote. And yet it turns out that it's actually, maybe about the same size roughly as a Tarbosaurus, as in mass-wise, while I would have expected it to be heavier than a Tarbosaurus, for example. So what's your opinion on this, and was it quite a surprising, observation for you personally to make, provided that obviously the observation was indeed accurate?
Okay, first for the Dinosaurs, I haven't produced my own skeletal, but we had the skeletal for the glorious Scott Harman that I could use for the lateral view. For the dorsal view, I had to follow the original description and kind of edit the proportions of another ornithomimid, so it fit the measurements of Dinosaurs. It is obvious Dinosaurus is a very heavy animal. Only with the limb measurements you can tell that it has the second most robust femora in all of Theropoda, just after Tyrannosaurus rex, which has the most robust limb bones, which also suggests it is the heaviest one, along with the volumetric estimates. As for Therizinosaurus, it is a very fragmentary taxon. It only preserves forelimb material and foot material, but reconstructing the missing bits after more complete Therizinosaurids like Alxasaurus or Nothronicus, we can get a pretty good idea of its proportions. While Therizinosaurus might have a very wide hip, it has a rather short torso and especially short limbs, short tail, and a very thin neck and head, very small. So even if the abdomen can be roughly equivalent in size to other large theropods, the rest of the body falls short compared to other theropods with more standard proportions, larger heads in proportion and larger tails in proportion.
Okay, I see. So yeah, I mean, obviously we are coming back essentially to the point that while generally they tend to be following, their body plan closest to the relatives, but then when you start to look at theropods as a more of an umbrella term, because as you know, theropods are very inclusive of all the variety of dinosaurs. They're not just the classic carnivorous theropods that we know of, but they're also including omnivorous and other types of dinosaurs, which may come as a surprise to some, but probably for most viewers it will not be. But it's a very interesting point you made of how Therizinosaurus, despite being a particularly famous example due to its huge forearm size, it's actually not that well preserved. It's a very fragmentary specimen.
Yeah, we have very little. We have only 2 specimens. The type is very poorly preserved. And the paratype is just the forelimb, the giant forelimb that everyone knows and loves. And that's basically it. There isn't many more from it that we can use, sadly. Thankfully, we have many remains of closely related animals that also show very unique proportions, and that is very important, because sometimes we will have very fragmentary remains from an outlier like Spinosaurus, and then much more complete from Suchomimus, but even from the overlapping material, you could tell Spinosaurus was very different. There was something very weird going with it, with the proportions of the ribs and the neural spines, especially the famous neural spines of the back, the sail. So in this case, Therizinosaurus seems to be rather common for a Therizinosaurus, just huge. So
I'm really glad that you brought up Spinosaurus because let's just say whatever weird things are going on with Spinosaurus, they're still going on. They're not even yet fully resolved.
yeah, that is true. We are still awaiting the monograph of the neotype specimen. The holotype was destroyed in Second World War with the bombardments by the Allies. So we have to rely mostly from the osteology of the animal on a newly found specimen that has been very controversial because of the very small size of the hind limbs relative to its dorsal vertebrae, because some have suggested the overlap material with the holotype is poor, but although I don't think this is exactly the case because it has a very clear autapomorphy of Spinosaurus that you can find anywhere else, that is the neural spines. So, well, we are still awaiting that. There is some debate whether there is a second taxon that got missed in the Spinosaurus remains, Sigelmosasaurus, which was considered to be separate very recently, but was proposed to be synonymous in Ibrahim et al. But well, let's see what happens. We are still awaiting a lot of data, so hopefully that will help clear up things.
I can also say that you should definitely look forward to the new publication that will be hopefully published relatively soon for Dr. Thomas Carr regarding the Tyrannosaurus ontogeny project, because this is going to contain quite a large data set. It's going to be a big book. He said it himself on my channel as well, and it will probably give you quite a lot of good material to do more reconstruction projects with regards to some of the lesser known and less frequently mentioned, so to speak, specimens of Tyrannosaurus rex.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited for this paper. I have been waiting on it from a really long time. I am already a huge follower of Dr. Thomas' work. I've read many of his publications. I have used his publications to make some skeletons like that of the subadult T-Rex you can see in my channel, one that was previously called Dinotyrannus, but originally described as Nanotyrannus, which, as you know, Carr doesn't like very much. With good reasons, in my opinion. And well, I can only say I am waiting on it, and will definitely read it, give it a shot, and hopefully we'll be able to reconstruct something based on it.
Yeah, of course, whatever the matter with regards to the validity of Nanotyrannus lancensis is going to come out, we have yet to see that, but so far, given what scientifically available information is out there, I am more in agreement that it's likely to be a juvenile Tyrannosaurus. But I'm open to suggestions if more publications disprove it, because we just want to know the truth.
Yeah.
So, to get to the next point as well, you obviously you've done quite a large amount of work, and many of my friends as well from who are in the community, or just both who are working in the paleontology professionally and who are just enthusiasts as well, they have particularly found your work intriguing at the very least, and they compliment it, which partially contributed to me inviting you to the channel. And but I wanted to ask you, and some of them have asked me to as well, what are the most challenges and difficulties that you feel are in here for somebody like yourself when you try to reconstruct a skeleton? What is the most tricky thing to do when you try to approach the subject?
Okay, that question has a very easy answer, and I hope if anyone that works on this professionally will see this, and it is that the worst obstacle you can find is the lack of a comprehensive description, lack of images, lack of measurements, lack of all that type of stuff that allows you to reconstruct the skeleton bone by bone. Once that data is missing, it becomes impossible. So if I could make a petition, I would ask for the people who describes this kind of stuff to do as comprehensive descriptions as they can, as many photographs as they can from many views, could write down a lot of measurements so we don't have to rely on the scale bars. That also is very important. And that's it. That's it for the skeletons. If you have good descriptions of the species you're trying to reconstruct and good descriptions from the close relatives, you should have no trouble. With mass, it is a bit more complicated because you need more views of the bones to produce the dorsal view. And you also have problems if, for example, the ribs are not illustrated, because the rib cage is very, very important for mass because of the size of the torso, which is where most of the mass is always located. There are other problems with volumetric models that estimate mass, which is the density that you apply to each body section. Normally, animals have densities that are really close to that of water, but that is not always the case. Especially with dinosaurs, we have a big problem with saurischians. There is sauropods and theropods, which would have had air sacs when we're alive, big lungs. They have very pneumatized vertebrae. So their body density is usually substantially inferior to that of water. And in that, you can have an error when estimating how exactly lower it is. So, well, it is a bit trickier.
Yeah, that sounds like basically it comes down to really simple things, but simple things then tend to get left out very frequently, don't they?
Oh, I forgot about another problem that you can have, that is, of course, the amount of soft tissue that you apply to the skeleton. In that sense, you might want to assume the animals were lean, because if you assume they have some kind of overweight or obesity, they become instantly 50% heavier, and that's very bad. So you always kind of assume they are lean. You assume they have a similar level of musculature to modern archosaurs like crocodilians and birds, but it is not exact as well.
Unfortunately, we do not have a surviving Mesozoic dinosaur to have anything to compare to, and given the diversity of dinosaurs, we would probably need at least one of each group, just for the safety.
Yeah. Well, I think I didn't understand that question. That wasn't a question, right? Okay.
Oh no, that was just me playing around a little bit because I just kind of, how much we love dinosaurs. I think, although it's not something that's gonna happen realistically, but we were always curious what would one look like when it's alive, you know. So, and that will answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, sadly, that seems impossible. I would have liked so much. I remember as a child, I was always fantasizing with with someone being able to bring dinosaurs back somehow, like what happens in Jurassic Park and all this kind of stuff. But at the moment, that's looking really bad. Probably, or almost certainly, will be very bad forever. So, well, an impossible dream. But we do what we can. We do our best.
Yes, let's the science prevail. So, one other thing then I wanted to ask you in this case is what, in your opinion, in terms of, to share with our viewers and with my subscribers as well, what's the best way for our viewers to test your techniques of how you basically do that? Is there any way they can basically do it themselves to see how consistent it is and how well and how accurate it is? Or is this a lot more tricky than it sounds?
Oh, no. Well, it is a very easy question to answer, but it can be tested. The reliability that can be tested very easily, but you have to be willing to put a lot of work. In science, we usually say that a good test for reliability is for others to be able to replicate your results. Anyone can learn how to produce an skeletal. Anyone can learn how to produce a GDI, a graphical double integration on it to weigh it. Anyone out there can access the data and research like I did and check if they get similar results. An easier way to do it is read the publications on the matter. My skeletals and mass estimations have produced results that overlap perfectly with those published. It is almost frightening. You can download the publications and corroborate the size of each bone versus what I portrayed. You can download publications that include volumetric models and even allometry regressions that calculate mass and compare them with my results. And I don't know what to say. For example, I have an Acrocanthosaurus mass estimate of 6.1 tons. It is like 50 kilograms of the estimate published in Bates et al. 2009. The Tyrannosaurus Rex shoe, for example, has an estimation too. It is 8.8 tons, which compares favorably with most recent estimates. It compares well with the 9.5 tons of Hutchinson et al. 2011. It compares well with Scott's estimation, which is 8.4 tons. So, and like this, many others, all of them compare well with the published values. I never publish them on DeviantArt until they are very polished. I tend to discuss them earlier with a lot of close friends that I work with, that I want to mention here because they are very important to me. I don't work alone many of the time. Many other people and online friends and I have had the immense luck to work together. They help me and I do the best to help them as well. We are like a family, all working together to research about and better understand what we love. It is an incredible feeling. I am really grateful. I wanted to give them a shout out in this video. They know who they are if they watch this.
Awesome, awesome. And I will say that it's actually a lot easier than many people probably realize, as long as you're willing to put your mind to it. There's pretty much because what I found, the only reason why I wanted to say it is because my viewers, I would say, definitely needed to hear it from you, but I can confirm myself having at least taken a couple examples where I backtracked on your on a couple of your pieces and decided to see, okay, so where is this information been taken from? How is that? How consistent is this? And from pieces I have tried, I believe I was the ones on the Giganotosaurus carolini and on the Tyrannosaurus rex. Because they are the ones that are most frequently brought up. So I basically took these two, and everything seemed to me like it was perfectly consistent with what we know from Scott Hartman's work, from what we know from original publication, and with the updates that were being made to them. So, to my understanding, everybody else can do the same backtracking, and even if they are really interested and patient, they could learn to do skeletal reconstructions. I'm just not that patient myself, but I'm a sculptor, so I do slightly different kind of work.
I encourage anyone to do skeletals. I encourage everyone to do mass estimations. You should do them. You should try them. Give them a shot, you people.
I think this is going to serve as a good invitation to another type of work, which I've never tried myself, but maybe one day I might. I might want to sit down and see if I can do something as well. Yeah. And might be interesting to sort of...
Yeah, the more help we have, the better, because we work a lot and we get to do very few animals compared to the enormous magnitude of them that existed. So any help is welcome.
So, one other thing, well, of course, let's just speak a bit more generally. Why do you think that dinosaurs are awesome? Because we already established that dinosaurs are awesome, right? But now,
Yeah.
why, in your opinion, are they awesome?
Well, they are amazing in so many ways. It is hard to remember about everything. I don't know. They are fascinating. They achieved an amazing diversity, dominated the land for over 150 million years. They have the largest land animals and the largest land predators that have ever existed. They lived in all regions of the planet. Some became semi-aquatic, other became flyers. They have some of the most majestic, most exaggerated animals to ever exist. The horned faces of ceratopsid dinosaurs, the crests of hadrosaurid dinosaurs, the astonishing dimensions and alien look of sauropod dinosaurs, and the overwhelming power and deadliness of the predators. They are like the animals of myths, but they existed. And while talking about dinosaurs, reality surpasses fiction in many cases. I don't know, they captivate our attention, they captivate our imagination, they make us wonder how they could have been real. They make us want to know more about them. They make us sad that to think that such incredible creatures are gone forever. As a child, they transport you to a different world where you can take refuge and forget about how cruel the world can be. They keep the child within us alive forever, and they encourage our internal scientists and artists.
Do you know what's really interesting? When you try to forget about how cruel the modern world is, then you start imagining, oh my god, these massive and super powerful jaws of T-Rex would have probably snapped you in half if they were to get it into it.
Yeah, well, since it transports you mentally, that isn't really a problem. It's just your imagination in the end. So you just
We'll just
get
play a
distracted.
ghost. We'll just play as ghosts and we'll pretend that we're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
there and they won't see us.
yeah. We just observe,
We just observe, exactly. We don't get involved.
like we do today. Sadly, with
Yeah.
the remains that they left, we only can observe their bones. Well, the rocks that used to be their bones. So
So it sounds to me like you've really brilliantly addressed every single question so far, and I especially think that many of my viewers will find your last comment about why dinosaurs are awesome particularly thought stimulating and inspiring. Regardless of how on point and obvious some of these points were, it's something that gets frequently forgotten and overlooked with all the crazy and heated debates that happen sometimes. So I think it's important to kind of get back to this point and to this kind of harbor to realizing why we actually all, regardless of our views on how they were reconstructed, why we are into them, why they captivate us, and why we're here talking about them in the first place, whether we debate or whether we agree or disagree or anything else, whatever it is that we do, or in your case, skeletal reconstructions.
okay, yeah, that was nice. That is also only a personal evaluation. Other might feel totally different as to why dinosaurs are amazing, although I can't imagine many other reasons. But well, it's to his own, I guess. And well, I hope people can forgive me for the pronunciation. I tried. Sorry.
Oh, don't be apologize for anything, man. This is like, you know, it's cool. I mean, to be honest, I actually find that your pronunciations of dinosaurs are a lot closer to their Latin origins than most of the English speakers say them. Like, for example,
Oh,
you say Tyrannosaurus. That's actually a more correct way to say that in Latin if
yeah.
we were to go classic. rather than...
if I say them in Spanish, they will be correct. But I tried to pronounce them in English, and probably they aren't like the usual English pronunciation. So I don't know. Well, hopefully people can forgive me.
How do you pronounce, by the way, just now that I got curious, just to make sure that I understand correctly, how do you pronounce Tyrannosaurus, but in your language, in Spanish?
Tyrannosaurus.
Okay, so it's Tyrannosaurus in Spanish, but I think Tyrannosauro, that's Italian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
there's a translation as well, and it would be Tyrannosaurio.
Right, gotcha. But this is actually what I found is very interesting and doesn't get brought up frequently, that this is a lot closer to its real Latin pronunciation, if I'm correct, because many words in Spanish and Portuguese and Italian, they're actually a lot closer in pronunciation to Latin.
Yeah, they have an origin in Latin after all, not like English, which originates in Anglo-Saxon, I think, or something like that. I
Sure.
am not very good linguist.
Me neither, unfortunately, as much as I would love to be, and me neither. But it's a very interesting subject to talk about maybe some other time, but we will definitely get back to it as well, because I have not covered the nomenclature and naming of dinosaurs on this channel just yet. But by the way, guys, those who are watching, please leave comments down below if you want these kind of subjects to be covered on the channel as well. Now, on the last point, are there any currently ongoing work in progress or projects that you're currently in the process of preparing that we might expect for you to produce in the nearest future?
Well, yes. Okay, I'm still only an university student yet. I plan on graduating, and then I plan on. I'm already developing some manuscripts and studies that will lead to postgraduate works, eventually, hopefully, doctorate. I don't know. As for publications, I have been commissioned and are collaborating in a publication and doing the skeletal reconstructions for two dinosaurs that will be named and published in a near future, but I can't talk about it because it is confidential. I hope I will be able to do this more frequently and keep doing it in the future. And that's it. I plan on keeping studying, keeping producing skeletons. All other things are secondary.
I think me and my viewers will both agree that we wish you all the best of luck with this project. Once we hopefully find out what it is, we'll be happy to cover it and have you back on the channel to talk about it. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, of course. Talk about the new dinosaurs that
Exactly. So we could have a really good fun session then. And also I wanted to ask, I presume since this partially answers one of the questions that I have already presented, but to say out loud is whether or not you had any of your work submitted for peer review, and given that you are in the process of being, of having been commissioned to the project, that means that portion of your work has already indeed, well, to a degree, would have gone through peer review.
Yeah,
so,
it will have to. I have. I think it will make it. I don't think there can be anything wrong. Well, they probably can find something, then we will correct it and submit it again. I am on the way of producing more stuff that can be published. It is very hard to just publish a skeletal and a GDI out of the blue. It has to have a context. It has to serve for something. For example, if it was a paper about the size evolution in theropoda or something like that, then the skeletons will have some context, and then a publication would be justified. But as it is now, it is more of a work in progress that I happen to share with everyone.
Awesome. I'm hoping and personally having my fingers crossed, and I think I can safely speak on behalf of my friends who both work in paleontology and both are just enthusiasts like you and I, that your other pieces that you have produced already and uploaded out there online will eventually be featured in peer-reviewed publications, and thus gain even more exposure and attention, which I personally believe they do indeed deserve.
Okay, let's see what we can do. We'll
Exactly.
try.
Yeah, let's wait and see what happens, and we'll just hope for the best. In the meantime, more skeletals, more dinosaurs, more fun.
Yeah, never ending. At least while I'm alive.
That's
I'm not
that's
inviting anyone to kill me or something. Well, okay, we can finish. I think.
that's a very good, no, that's a very good positive attitude. I mean, that's what we like here. We are, like I said, we're nice and relaxed here. We're all human beings. We just wanna have fun with it as well. We don't wanna obviously be making it into something that's boring. We're doing it because we are interested in it. So I do this as part of my activity for the channel. I don't make money from this. I just do it because I want more people to know about these things, and I want some of it I share my views, but I invite yourself and other guest speakers because I want people to know what they think and how they do things. And because a lot of these things, it's it's not as it may sound obvious when you point it out, but it may not be as obvious immediately, because sometimes we tend to get carried away, which is how we are.
Yeah.
So I want to really
Yes,
thank you for making time to come to the channel. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of my viewers will like to have you back once you produce, once the piece of work gets published, so we can have another discussion with it. And everybody here who's watching, please post your comments down below if you have enjoyed this session, and if you would like to see Fran also come back again to do another interview, and I'm pretty sure Fran will be more than happy to oblige. And we in the meantime will be enjoying his work. You can find the link to his profile on DeviantArt down below in the description box. I am personally myself always cautious when people reference deviant artwork, but with Fran we can be safe, and there is a reason why, as it's clearly been demonstrated in this session. So feel free to check this out to get yourselves more familiar, and bear in mind as well that everything that is produced, it's obviously down to the fact it's prone to errors there and then, but it's obviously possible to test, it's possible to backtrack. There is nothing supernatural about it. You can obviously go back and check the validity of work in terms of the technical aspect of it, just by following exact same steps, which, as Fran pointed out correctly, are not that difficult to do. But in any case, Fran, I want to thank you personally from the bottom of my heart, and as a guy who also likes dinosaurs, for coming to the channel and sharing your work and the information with us.
You are welcome. I am ready to come again if it is needed. Looking forward to it even. I was very comfortable during all the interview, so it was very nice for me as well. I love sharing my conclusions with others. So let's see what they say about the video. I hope they like it. I hope you all people like it, and see you.
Alright, thanks very much for watching, guys. If you guys are new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe to AKREX. Also, you can follow me on my Instagram if you want to check out what I'm doing when I'm off channel, and for some channel related announcements in the stories. Also, make sure once again that you follow the link and check Fran's DeviantArt page for some already published work, and stay tuned because more work will follow. In the meantime, thanks for watching and take care.